I'm Dr. Dina McMillan, and you're on Heart and Mind. And I want to thank you all for being here instead of huddling under your beds, as I was tempted to do when reading the news today. The world has gone crazy, but we are up to episode 14, and I'm glad you're here because we're going to be talking about Girls Gone Weird. Now, we live stream every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. And I have to tell you something. I thought when I chose Tuesdays at 8, I'd be choosing the calmest, most innocuous time you could. No. 2 weeks ago, we had the election. Now we have potential World War III. I apologize about choosing this day. Tuesdays forever after look a little different for me, but I hope you'll continue to join me. So we're on at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. in Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Now, if you're in Australia, as my guest today, Melinda Richards, author, former talk show host, and influencer it is 11 o'clock in the morning where she is in Queensland, Australia, and that's at 10 a.m. for Melbourne and Sydney, because I know I also have some Australians watching this show. Often Americans don't realize when we put things out there, it goes all over the world. And the only reason my UK people are not watching is because it's around 1 o'clock in the morning for them. They usually watch it as it's the recorded version. Now, I am, as you know, a social psychologist. Yes, that's us. We deal with the brain, learning, persuasion, influence, manipulation, coercion, indoctrination, and brainwashing. And the reason I brought you this show is because having learned all of these little clever tricks about influencing people to think a certain way, to behave a certain way, to do this and not do that, I wanted to inform the world. I don't think that belongs just in academia. So I decided to use my work to spread the word about what we've learned in the field of social psychology about influence. So if you follow me, you know that a lot of my work is in domestic violence prevention, because I have the first targeted prevention program for domestic violence where I actually teach people age 13 and above the specific tactics used by abusers to lure in and trap their partners. Nobody else was doing that. They were just giving them very general advice. And most programs now still wait until the person is in a terrible situation and then offer a little superficial help. I go well beyond that, and I go beyond that here on Heart and Mind. So I'm glad you joined me, because obviously you're someone also who doesn't want to just wait for everything to fall apart before you get involved. Now, speaking of learning, we all learned a lesson. We were all influenced. We all went through a trying time during the COVID years. And I hope you'll support Daily Clout in our historic work and buy a copy of the Pfizer papers. I know most of you are curious about what was going on with these people, what was going on behind the scenes, what's still going on behind the scenes. Pfizer papers available on Amazon give you the latest analysis of the clinical trial documents. Warning, you are going to be peeved as heck when you find out that a lot of the negative impacts of those vaccinations were known when they were doing the early studies. They just decided we didn't deserve to know. If you want to know, if you want to have specifics, if you're still dealing with people that are trying to get you to be vaccinated, I saw a contract this week, and I looked at it because it was interesting. It was in my field. I always look for new contracts, but they demanded that you get vaccinated. I was like, have they lost their minds? They need to read this. So it gives you the information you need to protect yourself and your family. Now, If you are on X, please sign into the live stream. If you go to Daily Clout and sign in so that you can give me some of the wonderful comments and questions we had last week. Speaking of last week, this is what we were doing.
I'm sorry. No. Why? Why? Do you really hate me that bad?
She's not the only person that I've had, because I've told you before that I have my family is all Democrat. So I've been having lots of fun over these years, and God, it's gotten worse since the election. But she says, do you really hate me that bad? This is one of the things that the Democrats were doing, telling people that unless you indulged and voted against all of your own interests because these people told you to, that it's because you must hate them and want them to die. That is a childish tantrum trick. That's something that, and it's also something that abusers use, that kind of emotional manipulation that is being used by Democrats, and especially Democrat women. That's something abusers use. And as speaking of women, I also wanted to remind you about this young woman. Now, this is a woman who has taken excessive amounts of artificial testosterone. It has caused her to lose her hair, and it has given her facial hair. She has a lovely soft voice, though, and she sounds fairly reasonable until you get to the end. This is just a clip.
Well, it's been rough. It was not what I was expecting at all, considering some of the rhetoric he has said. I thought we as a nation were smarter, but I guess not. To my transgender and friends and, the people who it affects, as long as you stay alive, they cannot say we don't exist. Being a Satanist means rebelling against them because they're wrong. And as long as you draw a breath, every breath you take is a rebellion. Keep on fighting because you just have to. Hail Satan, hail reason always.
Okay. So this is what we were up against. But that isn't even the most extreme. While she's just telling people who believe like she does and live like she does to just hold on, not, be okay, reassure each other, violence, homicide threats, extremely irrational reactions are what we've been going through. And while there may be a part of us with a little bit of, what do they call it? Schadenfreude, where you're just like, ha. This is really serious, and we all need to pay attention to this. And that's why I've decided to call this episode Girls Gone Weird, because the reactions are way out of proportion. And I want you to keep in mind, if Harris had won, they would have expected us to just handle our business. Are you ready to move easily and independently without pain or stiffness holding you back? Discover Native Path Collagen, a collagen formula that's scientifically backed to increase bone mineral density, accelerate tissue recovery, reduce wrinkles, enhance hair thickness, and strengthen weak or damaged nails. Who wouldn't want more collagen with all of these benefits? Native Path Collagen is a single ingredient formula with no fillers, additives, or artificial sweeteners. Plus, it's third-party tested for heavy metals, ensuring purity and safety. Completely flavorless, Native Path Collagen can be added to anything: coffee, smoothies, oatmeal, you name it. Its peptide formula makes it more bioavailable, meaning it's absorbed more easily and mixes perfectly without clumping. And the best part? Native Path offers amazing bundle deals. You can get 3 or 6 packs at a fraction of the price of other brands. With over 4 million jars sold, 1 million happy customers, including me, 8,000 5-star reviews, and a 365-day no-risk guarantee, Native Path is a trusted choice. Right now, when you visit getnativepath.com/daily clout, you can stock up on Native Path collagen for up to an incredible 45% off today. Plus, you get free shipping. Every order comes with a 365-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it risk-free today. Visit getnativepath.com/daily clout and start your transformation today. To make it easier, here's the QR code. I know I've started to get a little panicked when my Native Path collagen starts to get a little low. I know it's terribly vain, but having those very tough women at my hair salon say, "Oh my God, you look wonderful," I have to admit, I like the compliment. So this is well worth trying. Getting back to the bad news. Here we have what has gone wrong. Again, I stole the title for this from Girls Gone Wild. If you're over the age of 25, you probably know about Girls Gone Wild. It was a whole series of videos that they used to go around filming women, usually intoxicated women, at spring break and where there are other big college parties, and they would get them to flash their boobs or do something sexual, and then they would film it and sell it. And it was extremely popular. And it was called Girls Gone Wild, so I decided to call this Girls Gone Weird. And I used the word weird because if you'll recall, for a while, everybody that was a Democrat or Democrat ally was claiming everyone who was a Trump supporter was weird. They were all using that scripted term weird. But the problem is Tim Walz is one of the weirdest people alive. And people were just countering with, "We're weird, look at you." And a lot of Democrats are like the ones I've just shown, Hail Satan, are a little on the odd end of the spectrum. So they stopped after a while. Now, this is important. I want you all to listen up. I see a lot of you are there, and I want you to comment. I want you to make questions, but I keep reading and seeing things and hearing people say this all began, this whole woke thing began with Barack Obama. No, it is not Barack's fault, okay? This era that I call the Emperor's New Clothes started in the 60s, gained momentum in the 70s, and by the 90s was firmly entrenched in our universities, in our nonprofit agencies, in a lot of our schools, and certainly the media picked it up and ran with it. And why do I call it the Emperor's New Clothes? It's because, like the story, we have been conditioned and trained by the media. You know, every story we read, every show we watch, every film we watch, all the leaders, you know, everything we see in a public space, in our schools, we are told that we are supposed to interpret the world a certain way and ignore what we see, ignore the facts, ignore the evidence. As long as it fits with that agenda, we're supposed to grab onto it and run with it, and nobody's supposed to notice that the emperor has no clothes. Now, I want you to join me today as we talk about a real serious problem here, because the social pressure and the propaganda that have put rose-colored glasses on people on the left and many people on the right is troublesome and dangerous. And when I say dangerous, I don't just mean crime rates. We are poised at the precipice of World War III because of policies on a particular side. We have got to stop being so nice. One of the issues with a lot of women is that we're brought up to be accommodating and compromising and nice. And we really have to stop doing that. Now, with regard to whether any of this has worked on you, I want you to think about this for a second. Give yourself a moment. If we compared the values, the lifestyle, the family structure, what was considered right and wrong in 1975 to people today, that's where you'd see the successful indoctrination. Since 2005, the people trying to indoctrinate us have become extremely heavy-handed. And more of us have been able to stand back from it and actually say, wait a minute, what's going on? But I still, when I look at sites and see the comments from people who voted for Trump, let's just talk about Trump supporters for a minute. I see a lot of that indoctrination about what's right and wrong that's not based on facts, truth, evidence. It's based on what we've seen on our TVs, what we've seen on our devices, what we've seen in our films, what we read in our books, what our teachers have told us. Think about this for a second. I know we've been holding our breath for the past few months, and it still seems like life is really chaotic. Now, in a way, we can start working on a few things, and one of the most significant seems to be our national debt. The fact is, our nation is broke, and that debt is a house of cards that can't quickly be dismantled. So the strategy remains the same. Diversify your savings. That's why I buy gold from Birch Gold. So many things are out of our control, out of our president's control. It's important to have a safe haven for your savings. Birch Gold Group, my gold company, will help you convert an IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold. And the best news, it doesn't cost you a penny out of pocket. Text Daily Clout to 989898 to get your free info kit. Plus, right now through Black Friday, you'll receive a free 1-ounce Silver Eagle for every $5,000 purchased. Protect your savings with Birch Gold. Text Daily Clout to 989898 and claim your eligibility for free silver today. Now, I want to stress this again. I know I said it a minute ago, but I really want you to think about this. We've been taught that, like technology, that every new change, every new social change is automatically better. And the people who've been trying to indoctrinate us have been very clever in putting packaging on what they're selling, talking about how it's more fair, it's more just, it's more righteous. But they have not allowed anyone to ask questions. They haven't let anyone look beneath the surface or even say, is that true? Those are words I want you to keep repeating. Now, you don't have to be confrontational like a lot of left-wing people when they constantly say, what's your source? And then when you give them a source, they won't ever look at it. I want you to just be a little bit wary and skeptical, because new doesn't necessarily mean better. People right now, the use of antidepressants is through the roof. It is hundreds of times higher than it used to be. Families are more broken. You have more people who have never gotten married, more marriages breaking up, relationships terrible, people estranged from their families. And let's talk about neighbors, because if you can hear the drilling in the background, that's a good reminder for this portion. My lovely neighbor who won't let me tell the builders to stop drilling when I'm doing my live stream. He yelled at me. Terrible guy. But neighbors used to look out for each other. Neighborhoods used to be close. We don't have that anymore. I remember my mother saying, she grew up at a time when segregation was still prevalent in many parts of the country and many neighborhoods. And I remember her telling me that people were actually happier before integration because they had closer communities and everybody watched out for each other. New does not necessarily mean better. Let's be really strict about this and demand any change that they tell us. How is that going to impact me and mine? Be selfish for a second. Because one of the things that they've indoctrinated you to believe is, especially if you are white, especially if you are male, you are never allowed to look out for yourself. Look out for yourself, look out for your family. I don't care what color you are. Ask, how is this going to impact me and mine? Let that be your first question. And if you think it's going to be negative, feel free to say no. I am so tired of looking at the statistics, at the isolation and unhappiness of people. We can do something about this. How we've been running our society is not working. And unfortunately, I want to alert you all, winning one election didn't mean anything, really. We have to back it up with a tsunami of change. I read this morning that there are law firms with 800 attorneys already poised to try to block every effort Trump makes to improve this country. Well, then we need 2,400 lawyers, even smarter, even bolder, to go up against them. We cannot allow them to keep this woke virus running our country. And I want you to think about that. And when I come back, I'm going to bring Melinda Richards on because she's done a lot of work in this area, and she has a lot to say about it. Attention parents, I've got an early Christmas gift for you. We've all been there. 1 minute your kiddo is bouncing off the walls, and an hour later they're super sick. You feel helpless, and it can turn your plans upside down, especially when it happens on vacation or over the holidays. After thousands of customer requests, the wellness company has just launched the Kids Medical Emergency Kit. You no longer have to deal with emergency illnesses in panic mode. Now you can have 6 critical medications at your fingertips to treat 20 plus illnesses for issues like strep throat, ear infections, lice, and respiratory illnesses. This helps you avoid urgent care and hospitals. The Kids Emergency Kit has been hand-selected by the wellness company's medical board and includes chewable amoxicillin, dissolvable ivermectin, and an optional EpiPen, and more. This includes a detailed guidebook guiding you step by step in emergencies. Ordering this kit is simple, and only parents can order for their children. You just fill out an intake form, and you'll get a verification call for your consent. Then it's delivered to your door. Don't wait until you're in the middle of a crisis and avoid those late night urgent care runs. Order your kids' emergency kit today and remove panic from your life. And if 1 or 2 of the scripts run out, there's a replenishment option to restock only what you need. Go to dailycloudhealth.com and grab your kids' emergency kit right now. Use the code Dr. Dina and save up to $40 at checkout. These kits are only available in the USA. Now, I want to share a comment. I hope you don't mind, Joe. Joe says, toxic positivity reinforcing arguments that are socially destructive. And we have it, that was so on the spot. And we have an example of that. And I'm going to bring Melinda on because why should I suffer alone? Okay, Melinda Richards. The author of You Can't Say That, which is a big hit because we are so tired of being censored. But I have a little fun thing I just wanted to share with everybody. Here's Terrence K. Williams, who sells pancake mix and all sorts of food things and does the funniest videos. If anybody knows him, I want to meet him. I'd love to have him on the show. And I wanted to show an example of the emotional exhibitionism that has become so popular and is reinforced so much.
The way she walked off that stage and she held her head up high and why do I want to cry? But the way that she fought for us,
Fought for who?
very fucking demure. Very much. Trump Nation.
And we are.
Trump Nation.
And is.
Trump Nation. Why did I? Okay, so I'm someone who's struggling, and when Mom was struggling, I like to buy myself stuff. So I bought that doll.
I know you lying. Boy, girl, whatever you are, I know. I know good and well. Your big old grown butt didn't go out there and buy no baby doll. No Barbie doll.
The way she walked off that stage.
Oh,
Okay. Supposed to laugh. You're not supposed to laugh either. People watching. Okay, come on. All right.
I'm sorry.
Where are you
I'm sorry. I love Terrence K. Williams so much. Thank you so much for showing him today.
Isn't he the
because
best?
one of
He's my guy. I just love
He's-
him.
He's fantastic.
But this example was too easy to find. And because it is really easy for us to just laugh this stuff off,
I know it is.
when we're
It's not
looking
good
at
that we're
things like
laughing.
this,
And you know,
is
and I
scary.
have to say, Dina, the earlier clips that you showed today as well, I was chuckling at that as well. And I thought, no, I actually had to check myself because honestly, what you're saying, it is really serious because, you know, you picked out those clips and I'd seen those, but there's thousands of them. I mean, this is the thing. These are not random people. There are thousands and thousands of people out there, and that's what's really disconcerting. And I totally agree with what you're saying. This is a problem, and we do have to pay attention to it.
I call it emotional exhibitionism, and it is being highly rewarded right now. And the whole 4B movement, and I'm sure my audience has heard of it by now because they are really getting it out there, where women are saying that for the next 4 years, that they are not going to date, they're not going to have sex, they're not going to marry, and they're not going to have children until Trump is out of office. I've even seen a company that sells cruises that is offering a 4-year cruise. So you can actually take a cruise around the world and get back in 4 years. And see, but audience, pay attention to what I put here. Now, first of all, I must say I am limited with my videos because I'm trying to resist signing up for TikTok. And a lot of the videos that are out there are TikTok videos. So the people sharing them got them from TikTok, but if they don't download them a certain way, those of us who don't have TikTok cannot download them and share them ourselves. I may have to go on TikTok, and that's something that we need to talk about because this is what is alerting me. We will fight his hate. We have so many women that have been indoctrinated, not just women, but women especially have been told that anyone who didn't vote for Harris is filled with hate, misogyny, racism, homophobia, transphobia. First of all, okay, with the phobias, enough with the phobias, okay? If you're not a mental health professional, using the word phobia to describe disagree and discomfort was a trick. It was a mind meld. And I'll bet you a lot of you are saying, I knew it. Yes, because you guys are smart. It is a way to make not liking and seeing damage to the individual and to society with certain ways of life. It makes it seem irrational. So they got to the point where people weren't even allowed to ask questions. And of course, if you can't ask questions, you can't really make genuine accommodations. So we're seeing this emotional exhibitionism. I can't remember seeing anything like this, but I want to let everybody know, for those of you who aren't in the mental health field, for those of you who didn't know, there is actually a condition that has come about over the last 10 years called tendency for interpersonal victimhood, otherwise known as TIV. Now, you note the woman that I used to represent this has the shaved head because we're going to talk about that in a minute. But I wanted Melinda to come on because with her book, you can't say that. And a lot of the work that you've done, Melinda, you have really touched on a lot of these things. So I'm just going to go through it. The tendency for interpersonal victimhood, TIV, is a personality trait that describes people who constantly feel like victims in interpersonal relationships. So, they have an ongoing feeling of victimization that's generalized across many types of relationships. So, this doesn't just include walking around with a shaved head feeling sorry for yourself. This means in their friendships, in their family relationships, in their work relationships. As citizens of the country, they want to feel like victims because it makes them feel important. They incorporate these experiences into their identity. They have a need for recognition of their suffering. We used to call that a pity party. That was called self-pity, and it was looked down upon. But now, on the left, it's applauded. They have a perceived moral superiority. We've all dealt with that, which is why I think a lot of us were laughing when we saw the distress these people were just demonstrating, because they've been putting us through distress for the last, 10 years. Here's something you really need to look at. They have lack of empathy for other people's suffering. They ruminate over negative feelings and thoughts related to experienced offenses. And I would add another one to this. They are extremely entitled and vindictive. So this isn't just something we can nod along and say, well, if we give into a little bit, they're feeling a little sad. There is a serious wave of mental illness that has been programmed into a significant proportion of the society, and it is incredibly destructive. Now, any thoughts on, do you have any add-ins on this one, Melinda?
Look, I do want to add one more thing to that, and that is to say that everything that you say is absolutely true and correct, but we have enabled it. So what I think is happening now is we have this personality type that you're describing, but I think that personality type has been growing in size. And one of the reasons for that is that as a young person, if you're vulnerable, or if you've had a traumatic experience, or you have been a victim, and most of us go through our lives being a victim at least once. We've had traumatic things happen to us. If you happen to be vulnerable, the people that are pushing this woke narrative grab a hold of that vulnerability and shape you into this type of person. And I actually really believe that this type of person seems to be, as I said, I think it's actually expanding. And we as polite, obedient citizens have been standing by and going, but okay, we'll accept that. It's not too many people. We'll be tolerant to that. But over a 20-year period now, by standing by and observing these behaviors, but not calling them out for what they really are, which is exactly what you described, I think that we've kind of shot ourselves in the foot in our society a little bit.
We've shot ourselves in a lot of places. And we have Johannica, who said, watch the most dangerous criminal brothers in the UK, and sent the link. Ooh, thank you. You know I will. But here's something that I found really interesting. Since we seem to have some UK people who can't sleep either, who are actually here, because I do a lot of work in the UK, but 1 o'clock in the morning is a big ask, Konstantin Kissin does a show with Francis Foster called Trigonometry. I have actually been a guest on that show, and I was very thrilled that they asked me. But I wasn't able to download the video, but what he talks about, it's a short video where he talks about the fact that his wife told him about a study where they told women, we want to see how differently abled people are treated when they go on a job interview. So makeup artists came in and put scars on these women's faces and said, okay, we're going to send you into this interview and see if you get treated differently based on the fact that you have facial scarring. And right before they entered the room, the makeup artist said, ooh, let me just touch that up. And what they didn't realize is the makeup artist actually removed the scars. So when they went into the job interview, They just looked like themselves. But they came back with stories about how badly they were treated, how somebody said this, which was actually a reference to their facial scarring, which was terribly insensitive. And they were just so hurt about being treated so badly because of their facial scars, and they didn't even have any.
It's incredible. It's an incredible story, that one. That is, it describes exactly what's happening in society on a whole range of things, Dina. It's just a really interesting, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The victimhood underpinning of this woke narrative creates it's a self-spiraling situation, I think, with people.
I think that's why they consider non-woke people hateful. Because I look at, different countries, I look at different people's lives, and I know we've all gone through some stuff, okay? And while I recognize that, and if you've overcome and worked to heal through that, you have all of my respect, but I'm not going to sit around feeling sorry for you because I'm not helping you if I do that. If you want some assistance to help overcome that, I'm your girl. You want somebody to sit around, feel sorry for you and blame it all on white people? No, it's not going to happen. And one of the ways that we have enabled this, and social media has enabled this, is that every time somebody claims that there's some type of victim, they get attention. If you look at the huge explosion of trans-identifying kids, the majority of those kids are on the autism spectrum. The majority of those kids have had some type of serious neglect or abuse. And they have adults come along and tell them all your problems will be solved if you're trans identifying. And if they say they're trans, and I've had experience with this in my own family, if you claim you are whatever trendy group happens to be there, first it was LGB, then it was T, then it was non-binary, now it's God knows what it's going to be next. You get so much attention, even if you were being ignored before.
Yes.
And to the brain, there is nothing more reinforcing than attention. Appreciation counts, affection counts, but number one on the list is the power of attention. So giving these people attention for being victims and feeling sorry for themselves is guaranteed to program that into their brain that this is the go. Attention makes, to the brain, anything that gets attention is important and it has authority. So we have to be really careful. And the only reason I am reposting some of those left-wing videos is because I know they'd never watch a show on Daily Cloud or Rumble. So while I'm giving them attention, it's not I'm on their own group. I really fear for the amount of attention we're giving people because I know how the brain works. Now, I just wanted to quickly mention something. Has anybody heard the story? Put in the comments if you have the parable about the two wolves, where the man is talking to his grandson and said, "Grandson, every person has two wolves in their head. They have a good wolf who acts with honor, is responsible, is honest and hardworking and considerate of others. And then they have the bad wolf who's greedy and selfish and dishonest and aggressive and always wants to get their way. And the two wolves are constantly fighting each other." And then the grandson said, "But who wins?" And the grandfather said, "The one you feed." So when we're talking about getting rid of a lot of these beliefs, values, this TIV, we have to stop feeding it. We have to stop rewarding it. If we stop feeding it, it will starve and go away. If you have kids, if you give a lot of attention to the naughty kid, the best thing you can do if the child is naughty, is put them somewhere by themselves and ignore them for a while. I know my daughter had 2 temper tantrums, 2. And by the time she was 3, that was over. Because what I did, she did one time in a restaurant. So I just stood up and I walked around where she couldn't see me, where I could see her, because I didn't want to, of course, leave her by herself. And she's looking around. It's like, not getting rewarded for that. No. She learned very gently that no meant no, but also actions had consequences. So as an adult, my daughter has said to me, I appreciate the fact that you talked to me nicely. You were always happy to see me when I got home. You weren't moody. But still now, I am her mother, not her friend, and she has to listen to me. And we have to stop feeding the bad wolf. Our society has fed the bad wolf. Look at this. There is a competition among these women to be the most victimized, the most disenfranchised, the most extreme in their efforts. Women saying they're getting their tubes tied. Woke men getting vasectomies. One might argue, okay, so these weirdos won't breed. Okay, don't think like that. Because if we stop feeding that victimhood, these could actually be potentially in 5 years' time viable citizens. And they've sterilized themselves. And they love that group membership, which is why they're shaving their heads. But these women are in their prime fertility years. If they don't get a partner and have children for the next 4 years, some of them won't be able to have children at all. How is that hurting Trump? He has kids. How is that hurting Elon? He's got 12. How is that hurting anybody but you? Poison all men. There's a whole movement. So all of you guys, especially if you're white guys who get picked on all the time, who say they pick on me all the time. Yes. Well, did you see the woman who said she's going to get a gun and just go out at night and just shoot random white men? Yeah, and this is a white woman. Yeah. We have all the poison.
The FBI must be busy these days. The FBI
no,
must be really busy.
No, the FBI doesn't do that. They only pick on people who are conservative, who might say something. That's why they're trying to dismantle it. The FBI has lost so much status because they've been allowed themselves to be used as a political weapon instead of a law enforcement agency. And it's a shame for all the hardworking FBI agents who really put their heart and soul into their work. But the decisions on high are influencing them. And look at these women. They're so angry. We have to live with these perpetually angry, entitled, vindictive people. I know for myself, when I was working as a commissioner, that I had a trans-identified person looking at the fact that I don't validate that. I see it as a mental illness. I don't think our society should be accommodating it. And they tried to get me to lose my job. Now, they have a lifestyle and a way of living their lives that I totally disagree with, and I in a million years wouldn't think of going and trying to get them to lose their job because of it. If people want to hire them because they, why they think that way, that's not my business. And blue sky. Now, do me a favor if you're watching this live. Give me your opinion, or you can put comments later in the recording. I'm trying to decide whether I should take my Unmasking the Abuser domestic violence prevention program and start offering aspects of it on Blue Sky. Because Blue Sky was put together as a safe space for the left. I don't want anybody to be abused. I don't care who you vote for or what you look like. But I'm a little wary of allowing the vindictive left to know who I am. So please, what do you think, Melinda? Should I go over in Blue Sky and see if I can actually offer some helpful advice about abuse? What do you think?
I'm really torn on that one. I think that there's a lot of
What do you?
I think there's a lot of help that you can offer people who are professional victims, and I think a lot of people who are in this space feed their victimhood, and they have a lot of groupthink. So I think one thing that you can do, and a lot of us can all work together on doing that, is that we need to break this nexus of groupthink and reinforcing the victimhood narrative and reinforcing generalizations that are being born out of these groups of women. And some of these generalizations are that all men are bad, all men are abusers, that there's a patriarchal society, that women don't have any power. You can actually hear them talking about that. And those things are just false. They're absolutely false. And so I think that one of the things that you're doing, and that a lot of us are trying to do, is that we're trying to break this habit that people have formed, and this kind of mind mapping and habitual circular arguments that they run with themselves. And I just wanted to add a little bit too to what you are saying to this group of people as well, that I think also, Dina, there's a little bit of easiness about being a victim. It's easy to not achieve because victimhood gives you that excuse. If you can't get something right in your life, it's easy to blame men. It's easy to say that it's because of this and that. It's just so much harder to take responsibility for your own actions. It's harder to work hard and achieve your goals and dreams. It's harder to actually set down things that you want to do with your life. I mean, these things are harder than playing a victim. If you play a victim, you get the get out of jail free card. You get the easy way out. And I think that the groupthink that happens with things like Blue Sky is it reinforces that victimhood rather than allowing people to lift up out of this generalization.
I'm glad you said that, because I wanted to mention something. And again, my audience knows I'm very sensitive about this, because I have been completely shunned by the majority of my family for years, by some of them, because I don't adhere to woke values. And since the election, by many of the rest of them. And it is so painful to me. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to pretend I'm, hard-hearted Hannah Vamp from Savannah, throw water on a drowning man. That's not me. I am a marshmallow. And it really hurts my feelings. But as a social psychologist, I'm also concerned. You have a lot of women like Joy Reid who, and I've seen it not just from her, all over the Democrat space, where they're encouraging people to completely break ties with anyone who voted for Trump.
Yes.
They're telling women to get divorced. And of course, Blue Sky, again, is more of that self-segregation, where they're encouraging them to stay away from anybody. Wait a minute, isn't that what cults do?
Yes.
And it also is what abuses.
The shaving the head for me was really the cherry on the icing on the cake, because the first thing that I thought of when I was watching all the women shaving their heads was I thought of a cult. I mean, I couldn't help it. I was down that mind shaft, and I went, you know what? I cannot help but think that this has now become a cult. I couldn't move away from those thoughts of the things that I've observed during my lifetime on how people within a cult behave.
Well, I wanted to make a comment from Psyche, who said, I believe the self-sacrifice 4B American women are committing is an act of patriarchy of everything. Women should not volunteer themselves for pain and loneliness for the Democrats. Where are the Democrats telling leftist women not to do this? Go live happily. What happens is this: they are egging each other on.
Yes, I think so
and
too.
encouraging each other, thinking it makes them look like Wonder Woman, and instead they look like the Manson handmaidens. On the picture on the right with the X on the forehead, those are Charles Manson's handmaidens. This is what they look like. I look at somebody with a shaved head, and if she doesn't have cancer or alopecia, I'm very concerned about her mental health. And these women are competing to see who can be the most victimized. And since the world isn't doing it, they're doing it to themselves. And the competition is scary. And competing to see who can predict the Greatest Depression. I'm seeing women saying, I'm driving my car after the election results came in while women can still drive.
Sorry, that's
Seriously, I'm going to vote. We're not going to be able to vote next time. And you have people like Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Reid just fanning those flames. I mentioned last week, and it bears repeating, telling everyone that if Trump won, they were going to reinstate slavery. That should be illegal to scare people like that.
Yeah.
From a position of authority. Oh my God. And then their celebrities are giving these people attention. Again, remember how powerful attention is. Yes, and Psyche also mentioned the Manson girls. This is exactly Manson girl behavior. They think it makes them look strong and powerful, and we don't like Trump. Trump's going to go on and live his life. I had one video, I thought it was kind of cruel to post. Lovely blonde girl says, okay, you guys don't date men and go on a sex strike. More for us.
Yes, absolutely.
We now have, oh, wow, the pickings are going to be great for the central women and the right-wing women. It's going to be like, yes, 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 no, yes, 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 no. Because more men are conservative than women, because men are brought up to think logically. I have said this before, and for everybody that's watching, please note, if you are feeling emotional, do not make any important decisions at that time. Wait until you calm down. And if you get really revved up a lot, do something about it. Because if you are extremely emotional and you make decisions that way, you're far easier to manipulate by people who know how to do that. Now, I'm going to show you the tricks. You keep watching, you're going to have the shield. You're going to have the superpower. I tell people on my podcast, my Unmasking the Abuser podcast, this is a superpower. That's another reason for going on Blue Sky. Once you recognize the tactics used to control and abuse in a toxic relationship, you can notice it anywhere. And they will notice, some of them at least, will notice their own group is using those tactics on them. But in the meantime, this TIV, this tendency for interpersonal victimhood, and having it just emblazoned, it's exponentially increasing because of the Trump win. It's going to impact the ability to function of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of women, especially young women. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? If anybody has, by the way, if you go to the recording on Rumble or Daily Cloud, you can always leave a comment after the show. You have any good suggestions? You want to talk about it, I'll even bring you on. But we've got to come up with something, because the lack of functioning these women will have, and remember the one I added, TIV doesn't just have a complete lack of empathy. It's something I've noticed. I'm sure you noticed it too. I read your book, Melinda, so it's really worth reading. Her book is called You Can't Say That. You need to read this, talking about censorship. But also, when you're dealing with people who think differently and they have that TIV, and you just say, well, how would you feel if I did that to you? They can't even go there. And lack of empathy is underrated as a really big red flag.
It definitely, there's a trend too, Dina, I think in society in the last, particularly the last 10 years, is that we seem to be developing more narcissistic tendencies in our society, that the woke narrative, it goes from sort of this lack of empathy and it moves along the spectrum and lands at narcissism. And I think that's one of the things that is the single most damaging trend in our society right now is just this pure narcissism. I mean, whether it presents itself with different mental illnesses around, the transgenderism and around, Trump derangement syndrome, which I know that many psychologists are actually naming now. But in the end, some of the foundation, I think, to that is actual narcissism. It sort of starts as a lack of empathy, but it gets to the point where you just become so into yourself and so narcissistic that it's just very hard to get out of it.
And the narcissism, type of narcissism, is a fundamental aspect of the abusive personality disorder that I've identified dealing with so many thousands of abusers. That they are completely incapable of seeing the world from another perspective. Yes. Plus, now the type of narcissism they have has all the regular signs, the grandiosity, sense of entitlement, etc. But it also includes a level of vindictiveness, so that if you do not feed their narcissistic needs, and especially if you defy them or punish them or go against them, they never forgive and they never forget. And that's why a lot of abusive actions are missed, because it will be between people who have both moved on with their lives. Something will happen to trigger the narcissist, the abuser, to remind them of the woman who left them or the man who left them, and they will go after them again. And they have no moral standards. They will go as far as they can. There's no limits on what they will do. How are we going to live with these people? What can we do? Now, I have a few ideas that I'm going to be putting in place, attempting to work with the new administration to try to address some of this, because this is really serious. We are potentially talking about millions of young women who are going to be non-functional, hostile, vindictive, undermining over the next 4 years. And what if J.D. Vance gets the presidency after that?
Yes.
And while we can help our resistance to this by not giving them attention or accommodating them. I know all of us have been brought up to be polite. We believe in reciprocity. We think, well, if we give in to them this time, they'll give in to us next time. No, it's always their way or the highway. We have to be strict to the point of being ruthless. And pay attention to my bad word. My number one bad word is tolerance. Don't put up with any crap. Do not put up with something because somebody says, oh, feel sorry for me. Anybody that brings you a sob story, look further. And again, ask, how is this going to impact me and mine? If the answer is not good, tell them no. Now, over the next time, for those of you who aren't traveling next week, or you're not traveling till Wednesday, we're going to talk about handling the holidays after the Trump win. It's going to be really challenging. I'm going to have to make turkey for myself, because I'm not invited. I hope you join me. And Melinda, if you're not busy, you can keep me company.
I love spending time with you, Dina. I think what you say is it really resonates with people that have been a little bit too quiet for a little bit too long and feeling and thinking things, but you're there giving them the space to speak out. It's fantastic.
Well, we are going to speak out, and I'm going to help you find the simplest, non-confrontational ways to strengthen our society so that we can thrive again, and we're going to make facts great again. No more bad research, no more giving in to entitled people with narcissism. It does not help them, and it hurts us terribly. So I hope all of you will join me. As I said, any of you, if you think you have a lot to say, you can contribute to this. You can do what Melinda's doing. I can get up to 10 people at the same time. Isn't that cute? Feel free to join me, and I'll see you next time.